Hello everyone, this is Dave, aka DREVG. Today is Tuesday, June 29th, 2010, and I thought I'd update everyone on the euro-dollar trade that we've been following for the last couple of days. And I also wanted to answer some questions specifically from the blog at informtrade.com from Who Trade or HU Trade. They're very good questions, and I meant to say something about this earlier and just simply forgot to do so. So what we're looking at here is the 1 hour chart on the euro-dollar. And it's the last few days worth of price action. And these lines describe exactly where I entered, which was here, and where I exited some of the trades. 75% of the trade was exited here for plus 53. The other white line I exited at plus 132. That was another half of what was left. And down here I'm still carrying 40% of the remaining trade, which is equivalent to 10% of the entire position size. All in all, this trade's been running very well. My stop loss is still here at plus 100, so no matter what, I got a good run left on the remaining 10% of the trade. I'm going to get rid of these lines so that we can talk a little more about some of the divergence that we went over to begin with, and also what came up on the blog earlier today. So first things first, Who Trade asks, well geez Dave, you identified some positive bullish divergence. Why didn't you go long? And that is a darn good question. I totally forgot to mention the fact that when we're trading below this middle Bollinger Band and below the 50, and we are having a hard time on the hourly to get above that, and we're really kind of trading in this increasingly oversold area, it's telling me that we're looking for a place to get short because it is very bearish. And that's what I really meant by making this identification of the bullish divergence. What I should have mentioned is that I had hoped to see some bearish divergence, and in fact we did. I just didn't mark it when I did the first video. So on this 15-minute time frame, what we're going to do is identify the divergence that I saw after the setup presented itself, looking for a pullback with the bullish divergence that we identified beforehand. Remember, on the hourly, we had identified the bullish divergence, but it was well under the 50 and the center Bollinger Band on RSI, which told me that we're looking for somewhere to get short. And that somewhere turned out to be some hidden divergence that would be represented here. This is slightly down, not much, drawn on the top, and then drawn on these peaks here is up. But when we have down on the top and up on RSI, that is bearish hidden divergence. Now, I know it's a little difficult to see, but remember, these were the hourly bullish divergence lines that we were drawing, and we were waiting for some sort of setup to get us to go short. I entered a little bit early in anticipation of that, but in fact, when we go over to the hourly, you'll see that the lines that we can draw are still somewhat down if you had wanted to wait a little while. I'll show you what I mean. You'll see here that we have hidden bearish divergence on these points. These points here correspond with these points here, and people may say, well geez Dave, aren't these supposed to be drawn on swing highs and swing lows and etc, etc? Yeah, to be technical, probably, but in fact what we're looking at here is where was price action then and where is it now? Same thing. Where was RSI then and where is it now? It's great to have it on some points and some swing highs and swing lows, but it doesn't always have to be exact, especially when we have some confluence in here around the 200 EMA and it's hugging my 14 SMA. Let's not forget the biggest thing that put me into this trade to begin with, which was a little early, which was momentum. Remember, if we put momentum here where I got short, momentum crossed the 100 here on the hourly. That's huge. When I put that together with the other confluence parameters, followed up later on, I'm already been in the trade at this point for some 42 pips. This bearish divergence here only confirmed that this thing was going to be going lower, which is what got me to stay in the trade later on. The other question that I had, and also some private messages that I had, were why do I choose the RSI on the 4 period? I mentioned it a little bit in the blog, and really I'm very much of the persuasion that indicators and how you use them are not typically your own, because someone else came up with it. You're just choosing to implement it in a different way. So someone can come up with a system, and there's rules and indicators and price action that's going along with that, but I certainly didn't come up with it. I simply added Bollinger Bands, who someone else created, to RSI, and someone even thought of doing that beforehand. I just choose to combine it with momentum and a 10 SMA on momentum, and I put it towards my style. So, why did I use the 4 period? When I had seen this somewhere in the web long ago, it was recommended. I played around with it a little bit, and although it seems a little short, I decided to keep it. So there's really no rhyme or reason. You could probably find a similar setup on a 9 period or a 14 period. So it's really a function of what makes you feel better about the trade. And the other part was, how do I go about trading when it's overbought or oversold? You know what? When I use RSI, I don't even care. I have the lines in here, 70, 50, 30. I think Kyle even did an analysis from backtesting that selling here when it gets oversold is a great place. Or likewise, scrolling back a little bit, buying here when it gets overbought is actually a pretty good play. So I don't really play the whole overbought, oversold game. I'm using RSI strictly as a divergence indicator, and when it passes the 50, that's pretty important to me as well. So that's me. That's how I like to use it. You can play around with it and make it your own, but for the most part, RSI and MACD are primarily trend indicators as well as divergence indicators, and that's what I'm trying to focus on when I'm using RSI. Well, I hope that helps, and if you have any more questions, please drop me an email at drebg@yahoo.com, or you can see me over at informedtrades.com, where I'm a senior member. Thanks, guys.